What's going on, everybody? This is Ty the Bourbon Guy, and this is episode 4 of Bourbon Talk. Tonight, we actually have a guest with us from the Strangers Worth Meeting podcast, Tyler Hixson.
What up, man? How's it going?
I think we can't hear you for some reason there, Tyler, but
Oh, no. All right. Cool.
I could see you there talking. Can't hear your audio.
Try now. Yeah?
Not yet. Nothing
Oh,
yet.
it's flashing at me, man. I got no idea. Cool. How about just that?
So we got a few people coming into the chat here. What's everybody drinking on tonight? 2 ties. That's right. A couple comments here.
Hey, man, I got my... I'm selected on my microphone. I tried a couple, actually.
Can't hear
The
you
audience
yet.
behind me. They can hear me.
Can I see it? But I still can't hear you. Okay, you guys can hear him. So I don't know what's going on with the audio on my end then. Awesome. Well, let's see if we can. Sorry about this, folks. Let's see if we can figure it out real quick.
I guess it's my show now, people. That's what we're doing. This is strange to be in the same room, and you guys can hear me, and he's got nothing. Who knows? But this is Bourbon Talk, so now I'm just riffing because it's my room. Yeah. How's everybody doing? Good. Yeah. Yeah, I know. You guys feel just as awkward as I do, you know? But we can hold down the fort for a few minutes, I think. The thing is, he knows more about bourbon than me, and this is like the bourbon show. I just drink it occasionally. So now I'm just sort of here talking to myself. Oh boy. This might be a letdown of a show for you guys. Yeah. And you're right, it is Ty in a way, because I'm Tyler. Yeah, you know what? I'm going. All credit to Ty. He gave me some of this Buffalo Trace, which is great.
There we
He's
are.
back.
Technology, man.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, thank God.
I mean, it's still Ty, and you got bourbon, and you're a guy, so Ty the Bourbon Guy, right?
Yeah.
You can make it
I
work.
was man, that was some of the most tense I've ever been. I was like, I'm running the show, but you
Yeah.
know what? Your crowd here is pretty supportive, and so that felt good. They were
Yeah.
being gentle with me.
Yeah. They. I'm sure that they probably had a lot of nice things to say to me about me as well. So, well, since I couldn't hear anything, I don't know if you already went through this or not, but well, first I'll say, how are you doing, man?
I'm great, brother. I just got into Illinois. Told you I was going to the next step, and so we just got here yesterday, and been having a great time so far. Keeping just as busy as we do.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
been good.
awesome. Have you? Well, we'll get to all this. We'll get to all this. I'm jumping
Okay.
the gun a little bit, right?
All
But
right.
so for those that may not have seen on social media, all the things that that I've been blowing up on Instagram today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of our connection here?
Yeah, so I'm Tyler Hixson, T Hixson Life. I started a podcast called Strangers Worth Meeting, and I was lucky enough to get Ty on the show back when I was out in Indiana, and that episode just came out today. And we talked bourbon and did all that stuff. I travel full time with my wife Andrea, and we are the Wild Hixsons, and so this is kind of what we do. And I don't know, I just love podcasting, and I look for interesting people. And strangely enough, Ty is related to me, which we found out at the podcast.
That's
We are second cousins.
I was thinking,
Small world.
yeah, I was thinking about this after the fact. So, for those that may not know, so you all, again, it's kind of hard to jump the gun because it's all wrapped into one, right? But so you all travel where you live, right? And you travel. It's weird to say travel, but you do travel,
Yeah,
right? Is that
full
what you
full
said?
time travel. Full time
Full time
travel.
travel. Okay, so and my parents actually have talked about doing the exact same thing you all are doing already. So I thought I'll invite my mom over and just so she could ask questions after the podcast about that lifestyle, since you all have lived it, and I'm sure there's things that maybe you didn't know going in that you figured out after, and turns out that she was able to connect all the dots. So, which is mind blowing. But
Yeah,
so I was thinking about it after the fact. Is that so far? Is that one of the crazier things that you've come across
yeah. I
in your
mean,
travels?
there's coincidences on the road for sure, but that was a pretty strong one. I've never had somebody that I blind reached out to be on the podcast and then turned out was a family member. That was pretty crazy. And so and I went after the episode and I looked on my like ancestry, because I've done that DNA test thing,
Right,
and
right,
your mom showed up on my list right there. And
yeah.
I never would have. It was just a name until then, and so I was like, well, now I know her, so she was right there.
That's
Um,
yeah.
but that's
That's
got to
awesome,
be the
man.
wildest coincidence of any of on the road stuff. Like,
Right.
how does that happen? That's
That's
crazy.
and I was thinking about it too. So for you kind of told me off camera how you were basically how you found me on Instagram and all this other stuff, and it's like for you to find me, choose Indianapolis, for me to go with it, the whole like I don't know, for me to invite my mom, like the whole thing. I personally don't believe in coincidences, so I think it's pretty cool. But it was pretty cool to see that. But so okay, so you have your own podcast called Strangers Worth Meeting, and I love the title. We talked about this earlier too, but I love the title just because I feel like I could know nothing about that podcast, and the title tells me everything I need to know about the podcast. So, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about that podcast?
Yeah, I think it is in the title, and it's also a really subjective title too, because the thing is, it's only strangers that I think are worth meeting. Frankly, so like, I don't think every stranger is worth meeting to me, and I don't think that everybody has to believe that everybody's worth meeting. But
Right,
the nice thing is, I can go online in all these places that we're staying and just go, that person, like that person looks really interesting to me. I want to meet them. I want to have an excuse to have a great conversation with them, and then that's what we do. And I've talked to people about anything and everything on the show. Just it's whatever kind of they're into. But I've had some really fascinating people on, including yourself, and it's just like been the best excuse to meet people on the road. And I just love podcasting. I have 3 podcasts that I do. This is the one that links closest to travel. But I just really enjoy doing that, and it's such a great like medium in which to talk to people. I mean, so is this. It's just
sure.
have a conversation, take it public. Why not?
Right. Yeah, it's like amazing because I think I don't know if you felt the same way, but at least for me in the beginning, it's like who's gonna want to watch or listen or whatever it may be every week about me talking about whatever, right? And I think anybody in that area kind of feels that way sometimes, and but it's amazing sometimes the support that comes out of that. So, um, hopefully, uh, a lot of people that follow me and listen to my shows and see me on Instagram and things like that, hopefully have tune in or will tune into your podcast too. So yeah,
Sure, and it's
it
subjective for them too, so that's why, like,
right,
the cool thing is I got all these episodes about different things, so, like, again, people I don't think people think that everybody I talk to is worth meeting for them, but, like, if they think this person is interesting and they tune into that episode, that's kinda
right.
how I see it, you know?
Well, and I even went back, man, and I looked at some of the other episodes, and it's like I kind of felt funny because it's like I looked at some of your other guests, and they're all pretty. Like the one before me was they had a wolf farm, right?
Yeah.
Like a farm, and I was like, I got some bourbon. I mean, it's like that's not nearly as cool, right? But
I've
so
had I've had a dude that rode across the Atlantic. I've had a UFC fighter. I've had, I mean, anybody and everybody from martial arts. I've had hunters and conservationists, and I mean, it's all over the map. Dancers and performers and whatever. But they're all really cool people.
that's awesome, man. So we talked a little bit about your lifestyle. So, and you said that kind of helps you with the podcasting. So, and I watched the documentary, by the way. It was amazing. So when I
Oh, good.
watched it, you guys were up to 242,000 views. So that's crazy.
That's mind blowing,
Um,
dude.
so why don't you kind of share a little bit about that, about that lifestyle that you're living, and kind of bring everybody up to speed?
Yeah, sure. As long as I'm not stealing the show and making it
No,
like,
no, it show's about you, brother. So you're good, man.
but because I do have my bourbon for the record, so I'm still doing Bourbon Talk. This
Yeah,
is the
we'll
Buffalo
get to
Trace.
it.
You hooked me
We'll
up.
get
All
to
right.
it. Yeah, there you
Um,
go.
so 2 years ago, my wife Andrea and I decided to do this. We were traveling a ton for work, and we were just in that place where we were gone from our apartment more than we were at our apartment, which was a real shame because we like being at home. I love cooking. We have all these things we're into. We didn't like staying in hotels all the time and having to eat at restaurants. We don't actually like eating at restaurants. We love to cook.
Right.
So we said if we got in an RV and did our lifestyle traveling all over the place, we would have more fun with it. We would just have a rolling apartment. And that's exactly what we have. So we've been doing it for 2 years now. And it's not as crazy as a lot of people think. It's super comfortable to live in these things. Like modern RVs are just little houses. It's the best.
Right.
And for us, it's a great fit. So my wife Andrea made a documentary. It's called Newly Nomads. And we did not expect anything to come from it, and people really got behind it, got excited about it, and it blew up, which we're crazy excited about. um, and that's the story of the first year on the road. So for anybody who's ever thought like maybe I should full-time travel, if you watch that documentary, you get like at least our take on some of the real stuff that it takes to pull it off. And maybe that is some of the things somebody else is looking for too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm very like I had no idea about this world. I knew a little bit just because, like I said, my parents are interested in doing that, but I they had been looking at RVs and things like that. I haven't really done that. So, it's my idea of that. And then when I actually watched the documentary, I'm like, wow. And then I saw you kind of, spruce it up a little bit too, but I was just like, man, that's really cool. Like it is an apartment. Like it's like you said, a rolling home. It's like, looks great and everything like that. So, um,
Yeah. A lot of
but
people who like make content about RVing, it's all about like, how do I do this? How do I take a shower? What kind of RV should I buy? And I feel like we care far more about like, why should I travel full time? And then like, how does this make my life better? And I think that's more of the story that she was really trying to tell. And I think she did.
that's really cool. So on your podcast, so I know you've had a lot of interesting people. Who so far, maybe is there like a top two, three, maybe something like that?
I
I would think it's
I
hard to
should have
maybe go
known.
through one, but
I should have known you were going to ask me this, and then I could have like a list up in front of me
or
because it's
maybe not
been
even your top, just like some of the more interesting. Like
this
I
has
to me, like I
been
said, like a wolf far, and for it to be in Indiana too. I was like, I actually messaged with them on Instagram and said I want to go check it out. I just think it would be really
yeah.
cool to go see.
I mean, you were episode 63. So that's 63 just amazing people I've met, which is crazy. Man, I don't know. It's all over the place. Like scientists, I have a good friend that I made down in Florida whose name is Ross Johnston, and he is a marine biologist and talks all about that stuff. So he'll talk about all marine animals with me. Um, I had on an author I really admire. His name's Tim Larkin. He wrote a great book on self defense, like changed my life. And I was lucky enough to get him on the show, which was just like completely out of my league, which was awesome. A ton of people who talk about baking and sourdough and Navy and former Navy SEAL. Um,
Wow,
Man, it's all over the place. But
that's awesome.
I think I'm always like, to be honest, I'm always most hype about like the most recent episode, which I think is a good thing. Um, so like I'm most excited about whatever has been the latest and greatest and cool
Right.
people. And so right now I'm really up on bourbon now and I'm really stoked about it. That's what I'm
Yeah.
into.
So just for everybody watching, so when you after the show, when you left, I sent you with it was a Jack Daniel's single barrel, and that was actually a store pick by it's a local liquor store here, West Clay Wine and Spirits is what they're called. Um, so they actually picked that Jack Daniel's single barrel, and then I sent you with the Buffalo Trace single barrel store pick as well. Um, there it is. So you sent me a picture of the Jack Daniels one. That that's in a little different shape than what that Buffalo Trace is.
Yeah, well,
So
I like the Jack Daniels, but I wanted to share it, and that's kind of one of the things you inspire with me. So I took both actually to a little family get together we were having with in fact, some of our combined family, um, who I also told this story to, and let them, showed it off for them to give a try. And then I took the Jack Daniels to fight night. It was UFC 266 the other night,
yep,
and I took it
yep,
over to the place I've been training jujitsu out in Lafayette for the last 2 weeks. They were super welcoming for having me, and I was like, wow, I should bring out something to share.
yep. Right.
And that was gone. That is no more. With a bunch of martial arts fanatics all watching the fights. It was perfect. Paired very
Yeah.
well for that event. It was a good vibe.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What were your thoughts on that particular bottle?
I liked it. I liked it, and I also started to recognize the difference between the bourbons that you had me try, and then going, okay, this is a different thing. And even though you told me they could call themselves bourbon if they wanted to,
Hmm.
I'm with you now. I understand why they don't, because
Right.
it tastes like a different thing. It's got like a sour aspect to it. It's like
Hmm.
it's sweet, more like in the way an apple's sweet than in the way a caramel is sweet, and it
Yep.
feels like it leans that way. And so I have a newfound understanding of where Jack Daniels fits in the I guess the breakdown of
Right. Well,
whiskeys.
that's we talked a little bit about it on the show, but for them to have, so they have charcoal filtration as part of their process, and that's the one where I was talking about how they literally filter. It's really cool. You can actually go on YouTube and see them do this, where they create their own charcoal, and then they literally just filter the whiskey through that. And it's just, I don't distill whiskey or anything like that, but it's amazing to me that we talked about the mash bill or the recipe of that whiskey, how you can just, one thing could be different there, or let's charcoal filter the whiskey here, or let's do whatever, and all of a sudden that changes. Like that tastes different than what you had here, and I don't. It could be because of that mash bill. It could be because of that filtration. It's just, I don't know. So to me, that's always what's interesting is like, somebody actually said earlier today to me, they said, well, isn't all bourbon like pretty much the same? It's like, oh, my skin like cringed, and I'm like, no, it's not all the same. And it's, and so she laughed. But I was explaining to her that, why? Because it's like, that's just like saying, isn't all food the same? If the recipes are different and how you cook them is different. And it's like, no, it's not, it's not going to be the same. But I think to a lot of people outside of bourbon that maybe, or outside of whiskey as a whole, it's like, well, it's all the same. And I even with me being into bourbon, when I first started drinking scotch, I actually, I have another relative that they used to own a liquor store. And so he said, oh, if you love bourbon, you'll love scotch. And I was like, scotch isn't for me because the smokiness, at that time, I didn't really care for it. Like now I can do it, but back then I couldn't. And so he's like, you like scotch, you just haven't found a scotch that you like. So he had me try different ones, and then it and then it worked. And then I was like, oh, I do like this one. And, but I thought all scotch was smoky. I didn't realize that some are not. And, so even with me being involved in whiskey and passionate about it, I didn't realize that at that time that it was any different.
Yeah,
But
I think there's more parallels in the things that you and I do than I even saw on our podcast, because what you're talking about is like introducing nuance to bias. And it's the exact same thing that travel does. Like full-time travel takes all of your biases about this place is this and this place is this, and over here people act like this and over here people act like this, and it starts to introduce just all these layers of nuance of like, well, not all people, and this place isn't all like this. And it's the same exact thing with whiskey where it's like, okay, it's just whiskey, right? And then the different ones you showed me, worlds apart. And it's worlds apart once you experience it though. Like that's how you get the
mhm,
nuance into the story.
right, yeah, it's for sure. There's so many different, and that's why on the podcast we kind of talked about the A/B comparison, drinking one and drinking the other, and now you've
Right.
got a reference point to kind of to go off of. So Gib Gaming says, for sure, I feel like this as a novice. It's crazy how significant the difference can be. I didn't realize. So yeah, it's and we kind of talked about it too, man. There's been bourbons that I've paid, more money than I probably should have for them, and then when you taste it and it's like, it's not worth that. But I've also done the same with food. We talk about the comparisons of food. There's so many of them, but they're so closely related, I think. But I've paid $100 something for a steak dinner, and then it's like, I could have grilled a better steak than that. So it's like sometimes that's the case.
And it's all environment too. And that was the other thing we talked about was it's like maybe having that steak at home that you grilled yourself that you have more pride in because you like got it from your butcher and you know about that cow and all these things, and then your family is like there with you and you have something that you're proud of. It's the first time you nailed the medium rare steak, whatever it
Mhm.
is.
Right.
Like all of those things can influence it. And so it could be the exact same objectively as the fancy restaurant steak, but because
Hmm.
the environment is different, it becomes a different thing entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had the Jack Daniels the other night, and now you have Buffalo Trace, and I see judging by the bottle, it looks like you're enjoying that one.
Oh yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on this one then?
So here is where I actually think this is interesting that we talked about being primed to like a certain type of whiskey
Hmm.
because you've been influenced in a certain way. So
Right.
like there's a good chance that I'm gonna like, uh, um, a Jameson whiskey because I had a professor gave me a bottle of Jameson and it was a special thing, right? And I think the same thing goes for Buffalo Trace. I was already convinced I was going to like it because I'm an avid podcast listener. They do a lot of podcast advertising on some of
Hmm.
my favorite shows, like with some awesome comedians like Burt Kreischer and Tom Segura and Joe Rogan. And so these guys are constantly talking about Buffalo Trace. So
Right.
in my head, I was primed to like it. The nice
Hmm.
thing is, I do objectively believe that it was like one of my favorites that we had that day.
Right.
It was really nice, and also like if you caught the episode with Kaz about Wolf Park, we talked a ton about bison, and so the fact that it's got like the American
Hmm.
bison right there on the label, like that also gives me an experience of just enjoying this drink because it's like this really American symbol, and it's this thing now I know a lot more of the history and biology about, and so in all aspects, I really like it, man. I
Yeah.
saved it from. I didn't even want to like. That was the. I knew the UFC fight was going to drain one of my bottles, and I was like, maybe not that one. I
Right.
like
Yep.
sharing, but maybe not drain that one.
Well, and I will say it's kind of one of those things. So Buffalo Trace, they do make. I mean, you said it yourself. I mean, they make amazing whiskey, and I think, and in your travels, if you ever get even near that distillery, I would definitely go check them out. They have in my opinion, one of the coolest tours, distillery tours. Um, they have a guy there who he is a third generation uh, distillery employee. So his dad and his grandfather both worked at that distillery. It has had a lot of different names over the years, but same distillery. So he actually is one of the guys that will take people around on tours, and I got a chance to see him when I was there last, and I mean, just the not only the knowledge of the bourbon, but then also, I mean, his grandfather did this and his dad, all the knowledge that was probably passed down. And he's been around this his whole life. I mean, it was amazing. But um, one of the things with Buffalo Trace is and they are really good. So I don't want to, they do deserve the recognition they get, in my opinion. But it's just it has because so many people back it and the influence side of it. You go on Instagram, people want to post a picture of that bottle or other brands in there, and they're from their distillery. And it's like, so then everybody runs out, and I'll go to the liquor store and people ask all the time for any of their products. And, 9 times out of 10, a lot of their stuff sold out. And it's just like, so now you have like the FOMO kicks in. So you have people like, so I think a Buffalo Trace bottle, at least in this area, probably goes between like 25, $30. And you may go somewhere else and not be able to find that. So then you have somebody that goes online and maybe they pay $100 for that. Or, I've seen Buffalo Trace has one called Weller. Um, and I think that used to be like a $20, 25, and I saw it online for 200, and it's like
Oh man.
it's just crazy to me. But people pay it because it's Weller and it's Buffalo Trace. I have to have it, and um, so it's just it's good because I think it's good whiskey and they deserve that recognition. But it also is one of those things where it's like it kind of hurts too because now people think that's the only good whiskey out there, and you know, so and people that may not know any different end up paying crazy amounts of money for a whiskey that really should have been like $20. Um,
Yeah.
but so as you whether it's the tasting of the Jack Daniels or the Buffalo Trace, compare those compared to each other, but then also compared to what you had while you were here doing the podcast. Were you able to tell any differences between them, or what were your thoughts on each one, or did you
Yeah.
pick anything up special on any of those?
To be honest, I feel like if you were to ask me, like, what is bourbon? What do I think of when I think of bourbon? And that's because I'm not you. Um, this tastes like what I expect bourbon to taste like. And to me, that's actually a nice thing because I can really easily categorize it. Now, to someone like you who knows that nuance, my guess is that almost makes it boring. So you had me try a lot of things that were easily more adventurous, certainly more out there, like whether that was because they were like that higher proof and I was choking and trying to get it down, or
Right.
because because they just had more interesting, spicier or sweeter flavors. What I like about this one is that it reminds me a lot of what we were there to like talk about and do, which to me is like that's bourbon. And so when I'm drinking this one, I'm thinking of like, that was that episode with Tyler the Bourbon Guy. And so that's
Right.
that's kind of been nice to me. But I think like my guess is that it's straight down the middle in terms of like what you can expect from bourbon, and that's kind of what I like.
Yeah, and that's so for everybody watching. It's at least when we first started talking, you had mentioned to me that you had some Irish whiskeys, but you weren't really as familiar with bourbon, and um, you were kind of wanting to learn more about that. And I think that's a lot of people watching are probably in that same boat. I mean, there's some people watching that may understand whiskey, and I understand that too. But I think there's so many people out there that it's like, man, I want to understand it, I want to get in it, but I have no idea where to start. I don't know. And I think even at one point you said something about like you don't know what you're supposed to be tasting or something like that. And it's like I love that though because you don't know, then I think you'll give me a better description of that whiskey than somebody else, if that makes sense. I mean, it's like somebody that knows bourbon typically gives you vanilla, oak, caramel, like whatever. They'll tell me vanilla, oak, caramel is what they're picking up because they think that's like the right answer.
Hmm.
Whereas one of the bourbons you tried, you said that you almost got like a coffee taste to it. So I was like that. I mean, so your descriptions were really good. And what I've seen is like anybody that's kind of new to it, their descriptions are a lot better because they're just going off of what they know. So if
Yeah.
that makes sense, but I think it's really cool when somebody's just getting into it to hear what their thoughts are on it.
Yeah, there's going to be a difference in how I'm going to describe something and how you're going to describe something, and there's something good about both. And but I think that your analogy about like the whole like thinking about the optometrist is the best way to think about it. So like
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like I can taste, if I was to take the shitty American blended whiskey that I have in my fridge, and then bring that side by side with this, uh, that I would start to pick up more from this because I have something else to compare it to. It's like we're better at comparing two things than at having one novel experience and being like, oh, now I pick up all these things about that one thing. We do it far better when there's a comparison to be made. I think some of that's inherent in us, not to
Right.
go on like the kind of rant that I would do on my show about like humans and how we evolve and stuff, but I think there's some of that's just inherent to our own biology, our own survival.
Yeah, and even the optometrist analogy, it's like there's times where I go and they're like A or B or one or two, and there's times where it's like because it's some that are very obvious, and then others where it's like can you do it again because I have no idea, like I don't know, and then I feel panicked and I feel like I have to like make a decision and then I'm
Yeah.
stuck with these contacts forever. But I think bourbon could be that way. I mean, anything could be that way to where there's some. If I get a smoky Scotch and a certain bourbon and put them next to each other, that's you'll know right away the differences. If I take Elijah Craig and Buffalo Trace and put them side by side, it's like I can taste there is a difference, but I need to keep kind of experimenting with it to figure out what that is.
Yeah,
Um, so I think that's something it's just takes time.
for
Um,
sure.
so another question here: how can you tell if a bourbon is worth the selling price? Can you tell from the taste or smell, for example, or is a lot reputation? So I don't know. Overseas is a lot of a different story. In the United States, basically, price really is more about availability and distribution, things like that, size of that distillery. It doesn't always have to do with the quality. So you basically have, um, so if I live in Indianapolis, Indiana, and you have a local distiller here, local craft distiller that makes it's a smaller scale distillery, and they just kind of sell locally and things like that. Their bottle might be $50 or $60. Buffalo Trace may put out a bottle of uh, Blanton's single barrels, one of their popular ones, um, and that may be $60. So it doesn't mean really anything in terms of quality. A lot of it just has to do with the distribution and the size. Um, I will say if you're interested in buying a bottle, like there's even been some that I like that maybe they're like I don't know, just pretty expensive, and it's like if I want to take um, before I go buy that bottle, I want to make sure that's worth that amount of money. So even going to a bar and just seeing if they have it, and just paying for a glass of it to try it first before you drop money on it, I think is worth it too. But it's really cool, man. I think even for me, like I was just talking to my wife about this. We were watching the episode, and it's like, man, that's my jam. Like what we did of just here's all these different types. Like try this, try that, try this, and you were pretty good about giving me direction too. Like this one wasn't my favorite. This one was a little bit too spicy. Whatever it may have been. But yeah, that's one of my favorite things. Is just to kind of get people in a certain direction, figure out where they're at, and meet them there. So hopefully it was a good experience. I would think hanging out, drinking whiskey. Uh, it's not too bad of a deal.
That's the best. One of the best podcasts ever, just for that fact alone. And I knew it was going to be. I was like, this is a guaranteed win. And then it was extra, that you know what you're talking about, and it was awesome. So, but yeah, like I think, and it's clear that people are like commenting, chiming in, and agreeing with you. Like it's just like buying anything else. Like, how are you going to know until you at least have a chance to try it? Like,
Yeah,
and it's hard sometimes in the world of whiskey to buy a super expensive bottle and sort of commit to that. And again, you're priming yourself to have to like it or whatever. I had never thought of that before, but it's the same thing you do. If you didn't know, just go. Like, if you don't know what kind of sushi you like, you go to a sushi place and you'll be like, that roll, that roll, that roll, that roll. And then eventually figure out, like, all right, I
yeah,
love this type of roll.
yeah, yeah. So the same guy that I was talking about that works at the Buffalo Trace Distillery. So he has a story where he's showing all their rare bottles, and there's a guy there that I'll just tell the story and you can figure out the type of guy. But to where he's saying, I have all these bottles, none of them are special, whatever. So in order for him to have every one of these bottles, probably means that he's paying, they call it the secondary market, probably means he's paying secondary market prices. So that's where I said they would take a $20 bottle and flip it for 200. Or so if he and some of these bottles, these rare ones, are selling for like 10,000 or 5,000 or 15,000 or whatever. So for this guy to say, and we kind of talked about it on the podcast a little bit, but for you to spend $10,000, like how good would that whiskey have to be? Like, I don't know. I think, yeah, it's just so the response from the guy that works at the distillery was, you know, you said you've had all these whiskeys, that you own them. When you bought a car, did you just buy it or did you test drive it first? And ever since he said that, excuse me, it's kind of been stuck in my head of like, man, that's a good way to put it, because when you're making a purchase like that, like try it first. And then if you try it and you say, hey, this is worth 10 grand and rich and then 10 grand's nothing to me, then then it's like, all
especially
right, yeah,
especially when you recognize you could buy a car for less than $10,000 pretty easily. Like this
yep,
is more than a car in terms of purchase. It's worth a test drive.
right,
But everybody has different reasons they like bourbon, probably, and I mean everybody in your audience too. So, like,
sure,
I think everybody should do whatever that subjective joy is. This is clearly this is going to be a hobby, no matter what it is. Just enjoying good food, enjoying good liquor, whatever. So, like, you know, taking that and being like, all right, you know what I enjoy about it is to flash it in front of my friends and be like, this costs 10,000 fucking dollars, right?
right,
Like
right,
that's what some people want to do. So if that's your
right,
joy, man, then do
yeah,
it. But what some people are like, I want the best thing to go with barbecue. And so they're like with you and they're trying to figure out the taste for their barbecue, for their cookout, their friends. But
yeah.
it
And then you got
embrace your
people like me
thing.
that have a bottle, and then somebody, a friend or family, comes over, and it's just like, no, here you go, like just take it, take the bottle,
Right.
because to me it's like, and I keep going back to this guy, man. You got to go visit that distillery. His name is Freddie Johnson. If you ever
What
go,
town is it in? I don't, it's in Kentucky. Yeah. So what, but do you know
yeah,
where?
it's only because you asked me now, I can't remember.
I can look it up.
I'll send it to you. Um, so it's really close to Woodford Reserve too. But yeah, so he's just an awesome guy. But one of the things he talks about was, especially with him being at that distillery, he had one of these rare bottles, and not to shift the mood, but his so again, his dad used to work at that distillery. His dad got diagnosed, um, and with, I believe it was cancer. I could be wrong, but I know he said in the story that he didn't have that much time, and so uh, he said, "Let's open up the Pappy Van Winkle." And in the whiskey world, that's a huge name. That's a really rare, hard to find bottle. That's one of these ones that are selling for crazy amounts of money. And he said, "Well, that's Pappy, Dad. Let's open up something else, right?" And his dad said, "We're the fragile part of this whole thing. The whiskey's going to always be there. There will always be another bottle. We're the fragile part." So he said he opened that bottle. He, his brother, and his dad all sat down, and that night they just sat around and laughed. And he said they had not had a moment like that in a long time. Enjoyed that bottle, finished the bottle, and then he said within the next year, his brother and his dad both passed. And so it's like, man, to me, that's where it's like, I do think sometimes we miss it. Like, as cool as it is to take a picture and put it on Instagram, or talk with people about, oh yeah, I've got this bottle or I found this. It's like, man, just enjoy it with other people, enjoy it with the ones you love. And if bourbon's not your thing, or there's plenty of people that I know that, maybe are recovering, and different things like that. It's like, man, just, it's not about the bourbon. It's just about being together and enjoying each other. So, like I said, not to bring the mood down, but I just thought, man, like that's like the whiskey there will always be another bottle of whiskey. So if I give you two of the best bottles I have, I'll find more. Like it's not a thing. But now there's a memory there of you coming over, and we talked about whiskey and shot a podcast and all that stuff. So uh, kind of nerding out a little bit on that, but it's really cool to me, man. It's like that's
No,
what it's all about. The
it's true.
memories.
It's like when we travel too. It's like there's a real temptation for travelers to collect Instagram photos at different places instead of really focusing on being there. And the truth is that like the places you can go take those amazing photos, um, you're going to drive there, you're going to stand in a long line, and then you're going to take your photo. And the rest of the world is going to think you have a great memory with that. And one of the things we've always pushed ourselves to do is to find the odd spots, to find the trails no one's going on, and even if that photo is not the iconic photo of the whatever, of the Tetons, of any of the beach, of anything, it's better because you have a real memory with it and you actually put some work into doing it.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. The to me, like I think more about the memories than I do. There's times where like, I talk to some of my whether it's a fraternity brother or friends of mine, and I remember. I'm sure at the time, because I'm very selective. I go to a liquor store and I'm like, let's get this bottle, whatever. And it's like, I don't even remember sometimes which bottles we even bought, but it's like, man, I remember that night where we grabbed a bottle of bourbon and all hung out and caught up or whatever it is. Um, so yeah, memories to me, man, it's like that's tied more into it than what I'm actually drinking.
For sure. You
Um,
never told me what
but
fraternity you're in, by the way. You've mentioned twice that you're in a fraternity to me,
yeah,
but you
so
didn't say which one.
Theta Chi
Oh, okay.
fraternity.
See,
Excuse me.
I
So
was hopeful. I was hopeful there was another weird
there
coincidence.
was
We would have been
another
in the
weird
same
coincidence.
fraternity.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So which fraternity
No.
are you in?
I was in Delta Sigma Phi at Millikan where I went to college.
Okay.
So we didn't have your fraternity on my campus. It was a very small school.
Yeah. Otherwise, you would probably join that. There's another
For
connection, right?
sure,
Right. Right.
100%. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah.
that's what it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so no, that's awesome, man. We're kind of wrapping up here, but so before you got here, you were kind of just new to whiskey. Now you've got a chance to try a few different ones. Where do you go from here? Is it something that, maybe the next time you go to the liquor store, you just think a little bit more about what it is you're grabbing? Are you liking what you're tasting with the Buffalo Trace or?
Yeah, 100%. I think the next time I'm going to the liquor store, you're getting a text first, and
Yeah. Right.
unfortunately for the people in your audience, they may not have that level of access. Of I'm gonna text you and be like, which one do I get now?" Um, but it's definitely something I think more about, and I think the same thing goes for me when it comes to things like craft beer too. Like when you
Mhm.
start to go on some brewery tours and you start to hear about what really takes to make it, and then you learn about fermentation, which I'm all about fermentation. It makes it all the much better. So. I'll be I'll be highly considering like what am I really like signing up for here? And I think there's also a place for me to keep buying my shitty whiskey also. The one
Mhm.
that, I'm just gonna put a bunch of like water and some lemon in, and that's gonna be what I'm, because I'm grilling out, it doesn't really matter to me in that moment.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is for some special things and for sharing, and I like having that around.
Yeah. For sure, man. Yeah. There's always room because I have one. I should have brought some of those up too, but I have a couple bottles, like one that I think I paid $13 for, one that I paid $15 for. And those are like, if I don't really care in the moment, I mean, like I'll just scrap, whatever. Wild Turkey 101 is another good one. That's a really good price. That's pretty good. And it's funny because people are always like, "Well, what are you sipping on today?" And it's like they always want the cool answer, and it's like, nah, and I'm drinking this $15 whiskey, and it's like you've got how many bottles, and you're drinking that one, but
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, that's what I want to drink, in the moment. But so
Right,
there's
and the
one
special stuff is for like your special occasions and when you
special
have
moments, yeah,
guests over and people over and you're cooking something amazing, and yeah.
right, and not to give away your whole podcast because everybody here is going to go actually watch it on YouTube. But one of the things I said is if I have a special bottle, I won't open it by myself. So it's like I wait until there's an occasion. So um, the last like big occasion we had, my son just turned 1, so I'm like, and because of COVID, I haven't had people over and things. So I like go grab like every nice bottle I have, and a lot of people that came over were like taking pictures and like this is the best baby birthday party I've ever been to, and uh, but there's another bottle that I had that one of the ones I paid $15 for, and a buddy of mine got married, and we had just had the baby. Obviously this is kind of like in the thick of everything, and we weren't able to travel to go to his wedding, so they actually FaceTimed us at the reception, and of course they're having a good time. And I had that bottle, and I remember being on FaceTime with them and just drinking with that. So it's a $15 bottle, but the memory, like I said, it's like that's what I think about it. So it kind of goes along with the comment on the screen, but you could have had a terrible tasting bourbon, but if you shared it with shared amazing times while drinking the bottle, you'll treasure that when you drink it again in the future. So yeah, it's true. Like that's what I think about um, every time I go back to that bottle. Um, so you said you're in Illinois now.
Yeah.
So how
Yep,
long are you
and
there for?
a couple weeks, and it's a gourmet time here too, and it's goes right along with what you just said. There is a pizza place here. There are only three of them, sort of
Mm-hmm.
in the Central Illinois area. It's called Philippo's Pizza, and no one will ever convince me, ever. Good luck, that this is not the best pizza in the entire world, and it's probably all because I grew up eating this with my dad. It was special. It was special to the two of us. We have a connection over it because it's like a religion for both of us. And man, I'm going crazy. I got here yesterday. They're closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. And so I'm like,
Oh
damn
man,
it. I'm so ready. It's literally like right down the street. And so I will
right
be tomorrow night. I get to finally do that. I'm going to pair that with some Buffalo Trace, and it's going to be
there you go, man.
even more magical.
So right now, my little community, there has been a lot of arguments or discussion I should say, maybe not argument, discussion on pizza toppings. So I have to know what you put on your pizza.
If the pizza is good, this is my philosophy. If the pizza is good, it needs nothing on it. And the best one to get is a cheese pizza. If the pizza is like, it needs some help because the crust and the sauce and the cheese can't carry the weight, fine, you
Mm.
throw some stuff in it. But and there are places, I love pizza, man. So if there are places that have those little
Right.
pepperonis that are so good and get really crispy, whatever, that's great and that's fun. But the truth is that like I'm religious about this place. I was telling Andrea, my wife, like I'm emotionally hurt right now. Like I'm really, it actually like has been hard to be here. Um, just like waiting to eat this. So uh I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. And I'm not like, I'm not talking like wood fired purist here, like, oh, it's
Right.
it's Italian, so it's only got cheese on it. I get putting toppings on it, but people don't know until they've had Filippo's pizza, what pizza should be.
Well, so I've seen there's been a lot of discussion on these toppings, like I said lately. But the main one that causes the most controversy is pineapple.
Of course.
So does it
Yeah.
belong on pizza or no?
Oh man, you're trying to get me canceled by the pineapple mob. Um, I'm very scared of that mob. No, it doesn't. It doesn't,
Yeah.
frankly, because it's a fruit, and so it's gonna get wet and soggy and hot
Yes.
pineapple. Like, yeah,
Right.
nah, it doesn't go on there for me.
Yeah. See, I mean, you got some
Look at this
people.
though. Your comments blew up as soon as you said pineapple on the pizza, and everybody's like, "All right, now I gotta talk."
That's wrong. Yeah.
You should start every podcast with the controversial
Right.
question and
Pineapple or no
get them
pineapple. That's
hot.
all. I could just ride that one out for the rest of this live stream, and I'll be good, right?
Do you put
Uh,
pineapple on your pizza?
so here's the thing: is
Uh
like,
oh.
no, I will never order it that way. But if I'm like at somebody's house or they ordered pizza or whatever, and it's pineapple on it, like I'm not gonna not eat it,
Yeah,
right? So
it's pizza.
yeah, it's pizza. It's like I've eaten a lot worse than pineapple on pizza, so I won't order it, but I'll eat it if it's there. But
All right.
so but yeah, man. So have you already started working on the next episode, or are you
Yeah,
kind
the
of taking a break for a minute? Or
next episode is already recorded and prepped, and it goes out next Tuesday. Tomorrow I'm recording the one after that. And I got some awesome people coming. The next episode is with a country singer from Lafayette. This one I'm doing tomorrow is with I don't know how to pronounce this word yet. I'm hoping she's going to tell me, but it's a farrier, I think is how you pronounce it. It's a horseshoer. And so we're going to
hmm,
talk about animals and horses and hooved animals of all kinds, I'm assuming. And
hmm,
yeah, I got lots more in the works though. So because
that's
we're
awesome,
going
man.
to be, we have a lot of traveling coming up. So that's always when I get pretty busy with new episodes. So it'll be
So
fun.
where to next then after Illinois?
We're heading eventually up to Wisconsin. I'm going on my first ever whitetail deer hunt. So fingers crossed
Oh
that I'm
wow.
able to do something with that. We're going bow hunting. And so we're actually like a big part of what we're doing here in Illinois is I'm out every day working with the bow, tuning it in, making sure I'm golden. And I had an episode, I think two before yours, where I talked to a hunter in St. Louis, and we really talked all
Mhm.
ethics of hunting and what makes bow hunting great. And so that's pretty exciting. So I'm sure I'll have a lot more coming out about hunting upcoming and food and
Sure.
uh, you know all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see, where your travels take you and who else you end up coming across, and maybe we have some more family members out there that you can find for us, and
It's perfect.
and
I'll
we'll go
keep
from
doing
there,
it.
right? Right,
I'll check
yeah.
my ancestry every time I meet someone now. But I
Right.
think,
Just check location and see if any of it, yeah.
yeah, I feel like the way you feel about bourbon is the way I'm hoping to feel about like game meat that I've hunted myself. Like that the pride of that is going to be to give someone some of that meat and say like, here,
Mhm.
like I went and hunted this. Here's the story. Here's something really cool about it, and that they can go and sort of join me on that adventure afterward. And so I look forward to having my own, just like your thing, to
Yeah.
have something that I can really share and send to people and stuff. So I'm
Well, if you
sure I'll have
ever
some for you next time I get there.
yeah, I was gonna say, whenever you loop back to Indy, just give me a call, and I
We
got
could
the
smoke it
this I
too.
said we got the
Yeah.
smoker outside, and we'll grab some bourbon, and it'll be a good time, man. So,
That'd be
yeah, let
perfect,
me
man.
know
That
for
sounds
sure.
fun. I'll
Yeah.
save something good for us to smoke too.
Sounds good to me, man. I'll
All
save
right.
some of the good whiskey so that way we're
I
good.
know you will.
So tell everybody where they can find you on social media and all your different outlets.
Sure, yeah. So I'm at T Hixson Life. There, it's on the screen. If you want to check out the podcast, the podcast is Strangers Worth Meeting. You can find it on my Instagram. My wife and I, our channel is at Wild Hixons. It's spelled Hixson just like there with the S after the X. And so that's where we have all the travel stuff going on Instagram. We do a vlog on YouTube with just regular updates and stuff. And she's also got a new documentary series that'll be coming out. So if people liked Newly Nomads, there will be another part of that that's going to get into the hunting and how we make that work on the road. And so, yeah, that's all the places.
That's awesome, man. So yeah, thanks for coming on the show and talking to us. Hopefully I know that you enjoyed the Jack Daniels, just by the picture that I received. Uh, hopefully you enjoyed the Buffalo Trace, and I'll see you next time you're in Indy, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. It was
Cheers
a
to
total
that.
pleasure meeting you. Cheers. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching too.
Cheers. Have a good night.